I have 3 cheesy questions. Is that the name of the series?
It should be.
Velveeta?
Apple.
Is it even a cheese? This is my Seinfeld. When you have to tell someone that that's your Seinfeld impression, it's not a good Seinfeld impression. You grew up in New Jersey, though, right?
Yeah.
Did you ever come up here? Ever come to the city?
It's like always the dream is like figuring out how to get to the city. You know, like in high school, we came a bunch, you know, and came in to drink at the one restaurant that would let us, you know, and go back. And, you know, occasionally we'd come in and someone get mugged or something. And then, you know, we still kept coming back. And it's just, you're in the orbit of the city always. You're always aware that it's there. And I mean, we weren't too far away in Jersey, you know, maybe 20 minutes. So, yeah, you're very aware of the city being there and that you're not in it and that you're somewhere else and that more shit is going down in the city than is going on in your hometown.
Yeah, every time I'm up here, I'm like, why do I not live here? And then I'm like, about a week into it, I'm like, I'm ready to go home.
Yeah.
Right. You know?
But then it's like, you know, is it just because you want to go home or, you know, or just because home is somewhere else, you know?
I'm enjoying, like, I need to be around my mom and she needs to be around me. It's nice to get to go over there like, twice, 3 times a week and see her for a couple hours. And it makes me feel guilty about all the times that I would go over and be like, I gotta get out of here after like an hour, you know?
It's weird to be on the same level as your parents. You're all adults now, you know, with lives and jobs and responsibilities. And you're always in that, you're always a child to them, you know, it's, you know, my mom's still, to this day, asks me if I've eaten. But it's funny to be older and, you know, and have a kid and be able to remember like what my parents were like as parents, you know, and like kind of almost you know, be able to like view it from a different perspective, being able to, I don't know, see what their choices were in raising you and whether or not you agree with that or if those were things that you would do yourself. You know, I don't know, it just changes you on a fundamental level that like, you know, either you kind of surrender to it or else you're just going to have a lot of problems, you know, and I've seen, you know, yeah, there are a lot of people who make a choice not to, or not to have kids, you know, and, you know, partly because they have what they feel like they're, I don't know, they're what they needed as artists, like, you know, the kids would hamper that in some way. And then there are other, you know, others who do fine with it too. So it's all a question of like, yeah, how comfortable you are with it and being able to, for me, rolling with the punches. And what was ultimately most freeing about having a kid is that suddenly there's this wall that you can't go past. Like, you know, if he's sick and I got to go pick him up, you know, there's no choice there.
Yeah.
You know, if we got to go to the hospital, we got to go to the hospital, you know?
Yeah.
Like, and whereas before everything was just a lot looser, you know? And having the structure of a family and your responsibility to that almost provides like a spine to my life. And then now I can hang other things off of it, you know? So, you know, how I do my work, when I do my work, I'm way faster than I ever was, you know, drawing stuff because I need to be. There's a way, you know, we tell ourselves that like as artists what we need is complete freedom, but then that's not always the case, you know, and that what you need is something to anchor you to life.
You got to serve somebody, right? There's
I guess so,
there.
yeah. Do you recall being like, this has gone from something I enjoy to something I want to do? You know, I want to make things. Yeah, that's a really tough question for me because I think I don't really know when it happened. At some point, it just became an inevitability that I couldn't do anything else because I would lose interest in it. But I held out for the longest time. You know, I mean, I always loved drawing and could lose myself in it for hours at a time doing something stupid and meticulous, you know. But when, you know, you gotta graduate high school and go to college or whatever, like those aren't options. Those weren't options for me. Just because, in a way, maybe because I had no one to model it for me, you know, because it also felt a little bit less secure than something else, you know. I thought, you know, yeah, I needed to have a job, like a jobby job, you know, like, so I thought I was going to go to law school, like that made the most sense. But even then, it's like just when I was at school, like I started off as an English major, English lit, and I was like, yeah, I like reading, you know. And then after a while, I was like, well, I don't know if that's enough for me. So then it became English lit and art, and, you know, visual studies. So
I can't imagine the pressure of, you know, being in like a lit program at Harvard and being surrounded by people who I imagine take it very seriously, and maybe even seem like they're on a track to be the people who are considered seriously. I think that whole school would feel that way.
Well, what I liked about it is you knew on some level that everybody had, I don't know, that they were thinking about stuff. That's what I liked about it. You know, like everybody had thought through something. Maybe you didn't agree with them, but, you know, they had something to offer, I guess. And the weird thing is, yeah, when you're sitting next to somebody, or, you know, in my case, like all my roommates were all finance guys, you know, and a lawyer, you know, that's what they went towards. And so it's hard not to feel the pull of that when you're around it all the time, you know. But then if I'd been, you know, rooming with like more with artists, then like what would have happened there, you know? I don't know. It's a weird time because you're trying to figure yourself out, and you kind of only have, you know, 4 years to do it before you're thrown to the wolves.
Yeah.
You know, it was always going to lead to comics, but admitting to myself that that's what I wanted took a long time. Even after I graduated, I worked, you know, in an advertising agency, and I was a bad fit for that. But luckily, within 6 months, got a job with Heidi McDonald as an assistant editor, you know, and so got my foot in the door. No, that was at Disney Adventures magazine. So it's 20 pages of comics a month, and that kind of was the start of it. Like I knew I wanted to draw comics, but figured that was a ways off as well, you know. So just wanted to be in the industry somehow. But even when I was at Vertigo, you know, it took 2 years, you know, to realize like I needed to commit to it fully if I was going to do it. You know, I kind of figured I could just do it on the side somehow or at night, you know, and it became painfully clear that, you know, you have to commit at some point or else you're going to be doing a bad job at both.
Right. So this is like what step? Just like cleaning it up?
This is the last, yeah. So it goes to Matt, and, you know, for the last few years, I've been doing this thing where I knock out a lot of line work, and I know it's a pain in the ass for him to do, and there's a certain amount of judgment that needs to go into it that he doesn't need to spend time on, you know? Like if something overlaps and something, you know, just dumb art rules, I guess, you know, some arbitrary art rules I made up for what gets knocked out and what doesn't. So for me, I think a lot of it is presenting a vision.
Yeah.
And then sometimes you can get away with doing less, but if your intentions aren't clear to anybody that you're working with, it's you know, that's on you to either communicate it in the file or in a, you know, an email or something. But, you know, I think being visual people, it's easier for us to, you know, just put in an effect. I don't know, you almost want it to feel like you're in the same room with somebody, and if you just have a quick question, you can turn over and ask them. You know, it needs to be that open at least. And part of, for me, I feel like because I came up through editorial, it was natural for me to talk to the letterer and the colorist and, and the penciler and see where everybody was at, and so it was just a matter of course that once I went freelance, I was going to talk to everybody. I just want to see what's up. How do I help? Because who knows, maybe there's something I'm doing that's annoying, that's slowing somebody else down. And I didn't realize that there were a lot of people who didn't do that. They just wanted or felt like they could only do their job and weren't supposed to, if they had a question, you had to ask the editor and you can't ask the writer directly. And I never felt like I should do that. What the hell? Are they going to stop me? They're going to say, you can't talk to this person? That's not somebody you want to be working with. So, it's always been from the beginning, about trying to communicate with everybody on the team.
That was, for me, being at Vertigo, I was able to talk to a lot of different artists and see how they did things, and, like at the time, working with Walt Simonson, who then I ended up going to his house afterwards. After I left Vertigo, I spent like 6 months, kind of assisting him, which meant going over his house. We'd go to have pizza. And then my coming over meant that he had to get to the drafting table that day. And that's kind of, I was like the main motivator for him that day, more than any whatever, side work I would help him out with, Like, mostly it was just making sure, for him, giving him, a reason to get to work that day.
What was he working on?
Orion.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
That's awesome. I never knew that was a connection.
Yeah. And, it was great because I got to see how someone who'd been working for a long time was doing it, and what was important to him, creatively and professionally, I'd see how his day worked and, it was what his art process was, and I could use that as a springboard for myself, say, okay, I like this, what he was doing here, and this makes sense to me. And so for years I kind of followed, his way of doing layouts and things like that, and, just layers and layers, like, lots of, refining drawings, over, with different sheets of paper and light boxing and stuff. And essentially it's what I do now. Yeah. And it's what I do now, except it's digital, But, having that and then, or talking to different artists and the ones who were on time versus the ones who weren't on time and what was the difference, and, it was a great experience, and I don't think, it helped me figure out what kind of artist I wanted to be as well.
Yeah. He was my favorite artist when I was a kid. I had as much bad taste as everybody else did, but I weirdly gravitated to him and Mignola pretty early.
Wow. Yeah.
I had mentioned it online or something, and someone tweeted at me a letter I wrote into Walt Simonson that got published in Thor. That I never knew it got published. Because I guess I just never read that letters column.
Right. That's amazing. Wow.
So my first published work is in the back. My first published comics credit is in the back of a Thor issue by Walt Simonson.
My first published comic work was a Spawn pinup.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Except they cropped out Spawn and it was just a picture of Violator, because it was Spawn fighting Violator. I was like, one of the greatest things about the image, revolution, is that there was a whole DIY feeling to it. All you needed was, a dream, and you could do it too. You didn't have to, go to Marvel or DC. If you wanted to make a book, you could just do it, And so it got me excited, and there I am drawing Spawn and Violator just for the hell of it, because they had the letters column, they were showing art, and I sent it in, and they cropped out Spawn because they were doing a Violator month or something like that. But who draws Violator just on their own? That's someone who should be on a watch list.
And it's awesome that now they have, in a court of law, they'll be like, we always knew CLIFF CHIANG was crazy. Yes. Exhibit A, 10 years old, Drawl's violator.
Yeah. I wish I was 10. I was like 18, 19, which makes it seem even worse.